We once again turn to the time that Aang was teaching Lu about the advanced energy technique. She was stunned to learn that Aang had planned for her to deal the last strike against the demon. She was worried because her opponent this time was a quintuple-finned demon and that it was a unique type too. Adding on its intelligence, and the chances of it having a defense that was too high for her. All of this made Lu worry that they wouldn't be able to take it down quickly. This was when Aang revealed the main part of the plan to her. He was going to force the demon to manipulate all of its power into a singular spot to attack him with it. And as Lu knows as well, that once all of the energy is used on the offense, then the demon's defense would become incredibly weak. When that happens, it would become the perfect time for Lu to launch a sneak attack against it. Like right now, as she throws her green spear made out of her energy towards the defenseless demon. The quintuple-finned demon realized too late that this was the plan that Aang and Lu had gone with, using Lu's attack as the final strike instead of Aang. Bullseye. Lu's green energy spear manages to land directly onto its target without missing. As she stares at her work, Lu recalled the method of energy gathering that Aang had taught her, which allowed her to retrieve a large amount of power from her single core. She couldn't believe that by using this power, she was able to pierce through a demon. Looking at its current state, Aang was right. The demon had focused all of its energy onto offense instead of defense instead. After being stabbed by Lu's green energy spear, the demon realized that its wood element skill, regeneration, was unable to work at all. Meaning that the demon could no longer heal itself. Confused by what was happening to it, Aang takes the chance to steal the integration core, informing Lu that she had done a great job. Within seconds, the integration core was now within Aang's hands. The demon could only fall onto its knees, still wondering about why it still can't regenerate. Aang explains to it that it was because of the energy in Lu's attack, which is the purest form of regeneration energy. When it was used as an attack, her energy will reject all kinds of regeneration energy that doesn't come from her. In its final moments, the demon finally realized what caused it to lose. It was the fact that Aang had planned for everything from the moment their fight began. Seeing the demon collapse, Lu rushes to Aang's side, asking him if he was all right. He happily shows her that he was fine while showing off the integration core in his hand. He also tells Lu that her last strike made her incredibly cool, proving that she was a real genius. This time, she couldn't help but blush at Aang's sudden compliment of her. Turning her head away, she tells him that it wasn't much, but in her inner mind, she was confident about her skills, as she didn't want to drag Aang down. Seeing that her last attack was quite powerful, Aang was worried that Lu might have spent all of her energy, but she assured him that she was fine and able to move around freely. But suddenly, Lu could sense the presence of others coming to their location quickly. It turns out that Aang was right, the other warrior groups have already found them. Aang knew that some of the warriors have exceptional sense, and are able to accurately pinpoint the energy waves of a battle. A group that has someone like that in their team would definitely not be easy to beat. So Aang decided that they needed to get away from this place quickly. He could sense that the footsteps were coming from the left this time, so they needed to find a way out of here by using the right side. But before he could go further, a sudden feeling of pain spreads around his body, causing our boy to cough out blood as he suddenly kneels onto the ground. Lu was shocked to see him in this state. She rushed over to his side, checking up on him. Aang's thoughts were in panic mode as he wondered what the hell was happening to him right now, as he was sure that he didn't get hit by the demon's attacks from earlier. But the pain he was experiencing became even stronger, causing him to grip the ground so hard that he could create tracks using just his fingers while still coughing blood from his mouth. His entire body was hurting uncontrollably. Lu could only ask him about where he was injured as Aang started to scream in pain, unleashing his demonic energy in the process. As he tried his best to hang on, he realized what was happening to him right now. His body had finally reached its limits, since his body was originally weaker than most, and even though he had a high level of synchronization rate. Within a short period of time without proper rest, Aang had used his demonic energy too many times, till the point that his body had finally reached its limits. He could only wonder if this was how much his body could handle, but what angers him the most was that it was happening right now. As he continues to struggle with the pain, Aang tells Lu to take the core and escape from here without him, as the other warriors would soon reach the place they were at. Lu rejects his idea immediately and grabs onto Aang, carrying him and telling our boy that they were going to escape together. Even though she didn't know what was happening to Aang, Lu had a responsibility as she was his team leader, so no matter what, she wasn't going to leave him behind. She slowly carries Aang to escape, knowing that there was a tunnel ahead of them that could lead to the surface, but as she gives Aang words of encouragement, his face didn't look so well. Finally, both of them were able to escape to the surface. Lu was sweating a lot, but knew that if they were to continue in the same direction, then they would be able to walk out of this castle. But looking at the building in front of her, a creepy feeling came across Lu as it reminded her of her dream from before. But before she could reach the building, a bunch of shadows leapt out from the exit that she had just come out from and landed right in front of her. A quintuple-finned warrior had appeared, telling his team that he made the right choice to join the triplets who had insane detection abilities. It was a group of warriors blocking Lu's path. Panic and fear started to come across her mind as Lu could see that there were 6 quintuple-finned warriors blocking her way. One of the triplets soon recognizes that Lu was just a single-finned warrior, while Aang appears to be seriously injured, making him believe that they were the ones that fought the demon just now, but then his eyes suddenly opened wide, realizing what it was that Aang was holding in his hand. He immediately points out to his team that Lu was holding onto the integration crystal, instantly grabbing the attention of the quintuple-finned warriors. The entire team was excited now, realizing that they were going to be the first group to get an integration crystal. Seeing their reaction, Lu started to think about what she should do as she wasn't strong enough to fight all of them at once. She cursed at herself for being weak. If only she was stronger, then she would be able to protect Aang this time. But to her surprise, Aang suddenly pulls himself away from Lu, telling her to hold onto the integration core for him. He knew that the warriors group just wanted the integration crystal, and since they were here, they couldn't let them run back to their homes alive. Lu was worried about Aang's current condition, but he assured her that he was fine enough to still hold his sword. Aang bravely walks to fight, telling Lu that as a warrior, he will continue to fight until his last breath. Seeing Aang walking up towards them, the quintuple-finned warriors started to make fun of him, finding this situation funny as they each activated their core's energy. Aang was already breathing hard before the fight had begun. He could sense that the demonic energy inside his body was so little to the point that he could hardly sense it. This was probably because his body was suffering from the backlash of the incredible demonic energy, so it means that this fight was going to be long and hard. That's what she said. The quintuple-finned warriors started to make their own moves, declaring that whoever gets the crystal first, gets to keep it. As the fight was about to begin, Lu started to have flashbacks of her dream in her mind. Seeing the upcoming battle of an injured Aang against 6 quintuple-finned warriors, Lu had a bad feeling. The bald man from the sudden warrior group that appeared announces that everyone should kill Aang and Lu. He was sure that once they are dead, then the integration core would be theirs for the taking. One of the triplets with good sensing skills couldn't help but laugh, telling Aang and Lu that he was sorry that his team were the ones to get the integration core this time. In his mind, the triplet had already found a buyer for the core, which meant that this integration core wasn't something for them to use personally, as their goal was to sell it, earning themselves a huge amount of money. Even after splitting the money with the team, they would still be able to buy stronger items for themselves. Aang, on the other hand, couldn't take it easy as he knew that he had only 1 minute. Once he activates his demonic energy again, his body isn't going to hold on past a single minute. Struggling with the pain, he curses at his own body, wondering why it had to be suffering at such an important moment. Looking back at Lu, who was feeling scared for Aang, our boy made it his mission to at least get her out of this situation safely. But as he stared back at her, the warrior group that was ambushing them had appeared all together in the air, inches away from where Aang stood. Each of them releasing their own core energy while wielding their deadly weapons, all aimed at our boy. Aang started to close his eyes, turning his head forward. He closed them completely now, recalling that he had only 1 minute to settle this fight. Without hesitation, he unleashed the demonic energy in his body, changing his form and declaring to the warriors that 1 minute was more than enough for him to kill all of them. The bald man and triplet were stunned to see Aang's new transformation. They could feel the difference in the aura, making them believe that Aang was actually a demon. But as our boy crouched down before them, he disappeared from their sights in an instant. In response, the triplets began to cast their skill called Sense, enemy detection, using their 3-way link. Within 2 seconds of the fight, Aang had appeared between 2 of the triplets without them noticing. It only took 1 second for one of the triplets to realize that Aang was right beside them. He tried his best to alert the others to our boy's position, but Aang was faster. He stabs the triplet straight in the stomach. Within 5 seconds of the fight, Aang decides to start with the triplets, smiling as he stabs one of them. The remaining 2 triplets were shocked to see what happened. One of them was pissed off by Aang's actions towards their third brother. So they all rushed towards Aang, declaring that they were going to take their revenge for their brother. Aang wasn't scared at all. Instead, he was calm, and causally swings his greatsword towards the coming enemies. With his sword still inside of the eldest brother, he swings it at the other 2. Within 6 seconds from the fight starting, he had sliced all 3 brothers in half. The bald man started to feel afraid of Aang's strength as he continued his attacks at them. Using a combination of the metal and earth elements, he called forth the skill named Spike Wave, sending sharp spikes from underneath the ground, covered in golden metal. He tries to stab the other warriors but fails as they manage to dodge in time. They couldn't help but be amazed by Aang's incredible skills and speed, since he had killed 3 people in one move, which made them wonder what exactly he was. Aang was in full demon mode as he walked away from the 3 brothers he had sliced and now poked with tons of spikes from the ground. This time, he was heading towards the remaining warriors. 20 seconds had gone by. The bald man started to think. He knew that those triplets had only specialized in their sensory skills, but they were still quintuple-finned warriors. He couldn't believe that all 3 of them had instantly been killed. So he tells the other 2 remaining warriors that they should work together in order to defeat the demon that was Aang. He orders all of them to use all of their abilities and to fight Aang to the death. Our boy could see that the remaining warriors were becoming more serious than before, and decided to give it a shot to fight them all at once. But as he stepped forward, he experienced a sharp pain throughout his body. The pain he felt was enough to stop him in his tracks. As he used his greatsword to support himself, another 2 seconds had gone by, leaving only 38 seconds of his demonic energy left. Aang was covering his mouth as he spits his blood out. His internal organs felt as though they were about to explode. Taking the chance during the time that Aang couldn't move, the 3 warriors started to get closer to him. Lu could see this happening and knew that Aang's body was at its limits. The bald man started to smile to himself after seeing Aang in his current state. He remembered that our boy was originally heavily injured and that turning around to snatch the integration core from Lu, a single-finned warrior, was much easier for them. As for Aang, he was something weird that they couldn't ignore. So they decided to use this chance to kill Aang while he was down with the pain from his body. Even though he felt immense pain, Aang was still able to stare at the incoming warriors, warning them that he wasn't going to go down that easily. Without moving from his spot, Aang casted a new skill called Energy Gathering, forming a protective red barrier around himself. The bald man was excited, thinking that the skill Aang used was just a mere protective shield, so he ordered the others to break it down by using all of their skills to destroy Aang's shield. And so, the 3 warriors started to beat, punch and kick Aang's shield repeatedly. To the point that they were tired, one of the warriors asked the bald man if they should continue attacking as they had already used up a lot of their energies. And that Aang's shield wasn't breaking at all, instead, it was shrinking. Hearing that, the bald man was breathing hard from attacking Aang's shield, but soon realizes something after hearing that the shield was shrinking. He immediately turns to warn the others that it was a trap and to stop what they were doing. But it was too late. Aang was smiling after receiving all those attacks, using their own energy. Aang started to cast another skill using the energy technique called Reflection, just as the 1-minute timer runs out. It turns out that Aang was absorbing their energies all this time, in order to reflect all of it back to them in a large explosion, wiping out all 3 of the remaining warriors. But as the shield exploded, it became a pillar of red light that could be seen from everywhere. Other warriors from afar could see it, believing that the beam of energy must have something to do with the integration core. So they all started to rush towards where Aang and Lu were. Once the explosion had ended, amidst the smoke and dust, only Aang remained as his demonic form ended while the 3 warriors that were attacking him had turned into charcoal. Lu immediately rushed to Aang's side, calling out to him. He could still see her and called out her name, but his eyes started to falter. As his weapon disappears, Aang began to fall backwards from the recoil of using his demonic energy, but he was glad that he was able to control the impact radius of the energy explosion, allowing for Lu to be safe from harm. But before he falls completely onto the ground, Lu manages to catch him in time. As she holds on to Aang, he tells her to go as the energy beam he released would have probably attracted even more warriors and demons to their location. But our girl isn't the coward type. She tells Aang that she wasn't going to leave her comrade behind like this. She orders him to take the integration core while she carries him. As she pulls him across the battlefield, Lu reveals that she was done with watching him battle everyone on his own. This time, he needed to leave the rest to her. But as she carried Aang, Lu started to recall the dream she had the night before, as their reality was slowly changing into what she saw. With the end of the dream, where Aang laid on the ground, dead.
Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.